Well, good morning again, everyone, and thank you for journeying out on a Sunday morning, especially when it's wet, and especially when there was a major soccer game last evening in the early hours. I can't see too many English people in the audience, so they may still be drowning their sorrows. Welcome to Symposium number 9 about talent identification and development in football. And we have 4 presentations this morning as part of this symposium. It's my pleasure to lead off. So my name is Brian Dawson, and I'll start by talking about draft camps and combines and their relationship to career success. And this has been a topic which has been of certainly intriguing and curious interest to us for a few years now, to see whether there are any good predictors of who may ultimately be a successful career player in Australian football. Only very recently, Carl Foster, who is the current editor of the International Journal of Sports Physiology and Performance, made the following quote in one of his journal editorials, where he said that contemporary athletes are in many cases already training 20 or more hours per week, and that we may be approaching the species limit for muscular power output. And that's been remarked on a couple of times across this conference. So while scouts are always on the lookout for the next Wayne Rooney, and that will always remain the case, obviously talent identification is extremely important, and if there are ways to improve the effectiveness of that process, then certainly clubs and talent scouts worldwide would be extremely interested in that. If we are approaching the species limit for how much we can train, then we certainly need to be very clever about who we select as our next talent pool. But I would make the point also that while talent identification is important and is the livelihood and the career of many people involved in elite sport, the nurturing of the talent is also at least equally as important. And one perspective which is easy to have is that there are many talented players which come into an elite club system, and unfortunately many of them are shown the door 2, 3, 4 years later, not having achieved career success. Now, not everyone can make it, we certainly understand that, but certainly I think it underscores the need for nurturing that talent very wisely as well. And I think in terms of nurturing it needs to be a holistic approach. We should be concerned not only with their sporting and football ability, but certainly their life and giving them some life skills along that way as well. Now, this was remarked on yesterday by Walter in his presentation. Moneyball, which appeared in 2003, I think, from memory, certainly caught the attention of many clubs and recruiting scouts worldwide, and at least caused a rethink and a re-evaluation of the way in which scouting and recruiting may be going about. It certainly had an impact, and it's probably still having a little bit of an impact these days in terms of looking for maybe the different way to do it, or the surprise way to do it that maybe might give you an edge on your competitors. Michael Lewis, who wrote the book, has done extremely well, and he's about to do even better, I'm sure, because in September of 2011, Moneyball the movie will be released, starring none other than Brad Pitt as Billy Bean, who was the manager referred to within Moneyball. So Michael Lewis has done extremely well out of his Moneyball book. Now, draft camps and combines run across various codes of football. Certainly in the NFL and American football, Australian football has followed that model, and we now have an AFL draft. Ice hockey in the NHL, certainly the same, the NBA basketball, and all of those have televised draft days where a big TV splash is made of the whole affair, and the new recruits are interviewed at length, and it's a massive publicity drive for the respective organisations. The cynical among us could say, well, that's probably what it does best, is give lots of publicity to the sport and the game. And what I'll go through is some of the research, not that there's a lot, but I'll go through some of the research which relates to the career success of the draft camps, and in particular the physical and physiological data which is measured at those camps, and whether that has any relationship to career success. The soccer academies are a little bit different, both in England and in Europe. Most of the major clubs have their own academy structure and system in place, and from a very young age, many aspiring players are taken into that academy system, and they may spend 10 or more years within that academy system. At the end of the day, it appears, and if anyone has any concrete numbers, I'd love to know them, but it appears that very, very few players graduate to the senior team from the academy structure. Many are released, many are on-sold to provide some money, perhaps to go and recruit the better players. So it's a different structure in the soccer academies, and it may be just a different model of the same process, in that many players come in, they are developed to a certain level, a reasonable level probably, but the expectation of the club may be that perhaps only 1 in 10 players may graduate to the senior side, and the remaining players will then be on-sold to generate some money which can be used to go and buy who they perceive to be the better players. So there are different models at work throughout the football codes. Now, most of the drafts and combines involve all sorts of tests of anthropometry, speed, agility and power, strength. Some have skill tests, endurance is certainly measured. Many have psychology tests, some have psychomotor tests. Almost all have an interview process where they're interviewed by prospective clubs, and in some cases they're also put through training drills and mini games where the scouts have an opportunity to watch them at close quarters go through that. I'm sure they've already seen them play in many games as well through their school, college and lower grades. As well as that, there's also generally a medical evaluation and a medical screening to which the players are subjected. Now, the first piece of research which looked at combine data came from American football. McGee and Burkett published this in 2003, and they looked at the 326 players who were evaluated in the 2000 combine and found the following. First and second round draft picks, which gets you a higher starting salary. So it is of some financial benefit to be drafted higher. You'll still get in the system if you're drafted later, but generally your starting salary is a lot more the higher the draft pick. So first and second round draft picks were, as you can see, they were taller, heavier, stronger and faster, and they could jump higher and farther than the 6th and 7th round picks. So some indication that there was a little more speed and power perhaps in the earlier draft picks. They also commented that 67% of the test battery measured the same abilities. So most of it is around the speed, power, agility type performance. But the irresistible conclusion from this study was that to get drafted and to have a higher draft pick, you should train for vertical jump. If you could produce a really good vertical jump performance at the combine, then that improved your chances of being drafted, but also drafted higher. However, this only examined draft position, not future success in any way at all. So it was only really about draft position. So it doesn't tell us too much, or it doesn't tell us anything about the ultimate success. These days in the NFL, there are fitness tests, there's a medical screen, there's a psychology test called the Wonderlic test, which is a general intelligence test. There are skills tests, and there are also drug screening, which they go through at the combine. In terms of the Wonderlic test, the general intelligence test, I could find that there were 3 studies which have shown absolutely no association with the test scores on that test and future NFL success. So just an extra little snippet there.